Welcome, welcome to UAP Troop 33. John, I'm your host. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing pretty good. I'm up kind of early this morning, a little bit earlier than usual, but I think there's some important things we need to cover that I've been meaning to get to that I haven't gotten to yet. Namely, I wanted to cover these photographs that I was able to find on the National Archives. Apparently, they released some photographs of what appear to be, man, it's a freaking flying saucer, dude. That's the only way I can describe it. Um, and it seems like it's caught in like a wooded area, like a field. There's actually a broken down looking pickup truck in one of the photos. A lot of them are still shots. I mean, they're all still shots. None of it's video, but it's from I think June of 1964. So, the fact that it's that old and it was released by the National Archives, I guess due to pressure from Representative Anna Paulina Luna and Representative Burleson, they're that the whole task force that's getting all these things declassified, not only in the UFO and UAP space, but also other conspiracy theory spaces, subjects I'm not gonna go into here because, first of all, you gotta watch what you say on YouTube, but in the for UAP purposes, these photographs are, to me, I mean, they are awesome photographs, clear shots. I mean, and this kinda, uh, coincides with these skeptics, these a lot of them are paid. But the skeptics that say, "Hey, there's no clear footage of these things, it's always some blurry, fuzzy, you know, video or photograph." Well, these are crystal clear. And you can tell by it's a series of photographs. Through these series of photographs, you can tell that this thing is in motion. This thing is flying, and apparently it's doing some pretty crazy maneuvers and erratic, movements. And this is before Photoshop, before AI, so nobody can claim that. And I doubt highly that they had some kinda, fake flying metal flying saucer that they were throwing up in the air and people were taking pictures of. Um, I don't think that was possible with the technology of camera that they had back then. So what is it? What could it be? Just use your logical reasoning here. It could be what? Maybe some kinda top secret government aircraft? Maybe we had some kinda, like, super advanced technology way back then, but I doubt it. Um, doubt it highly. I think the only logical explanation for these photographs are, um, that it is what it looks like it is. Crazy. And, of course, it's going unnoticed. Of course, the mainstream media is not covering this. So I am. And there's a lot of other content creators. I mean, I'm not even gonna say a lot of others. This seems to be flying under the radar. Um, there's only been, like, 1 or 2 other content creators that I've seen that have covered these photographs coming out of National Archive. And anybody can go and look this stuff up. Just type National Archives into your Google search, and these things will show up, amongst other things. I just picked these out because they were the ones that stood out to me. I did a quick look. I'm gonna do a more in-depth search throughout the National Archives, and I'm gonna bring you some other things that I find in there also. But these were the ones that stood out to me. I wanted to share them with you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, because I'm amazed. I mean, I think this is out of all the developments that we've had in the last week with Matthew Brown, the new whistleblower from the Pentagon, and this briefing that I was kind of, you know, I was kind of poo-pooing on that Citizens for Disclosure briefing. But I did. I went back and I watched it a little bit. I mean, it was 4 hours, so a lot of it was trash. A lot of it was just repeat stuff that we already know about. But then I gotta remember that, there's people in this space that are just now, approaching it with an open mind. There's actually people who are not familiar with this subject at all, and I gotta remember that. So to me, they're not saying anything new. But I guess the people who aren't familiar with the subject, maybe we kinda gotta take baby steps with them. I remember when I was first introduced to this subject, I was open to it, but, I remember not believing a lot of things that I was hearing from people back then when I first got into this, which was, I guess, uh, in the late 2000s, around 2007, 2008, I started really getting into this subject, and I didn't believe a lot of the things that I was being introduced to, that now I know is fact. So I guess I gotta remember that, that there's other people out there. It's not just about me, it's not just about people, a lot of people who watch my content, we're pretty advanced in this subject, most of 'em. I gotta remember there's people that are new to this, and they have to be brought along, slowly. You don't wanna shock them too much or else they're just gonna become disbelievers. You have to bring them along slowly. I think that's what this whole process is about. I need to be mindful of that, and stop, um, being impatient, wanting it all at once. These are the photographs. I hope you guys, look at them. You can see the sun glinting off of the metal. You can see this thing. It's, at one point, it seems like it's level to the ground. You see a nice close up of it between the trees. Other frames, it's like horizontal, and, I posted it on TikTok and, I posted it as separate photos and the one lady on the one where the thing is horizontal, she's like, "Is it hovering?" I said, "No, I think it's flying." So yeah, there's that. And then, Hal Puthoff, he was on, Joe Rogan, and, I wanna show you guys this little clip. He's talking about, these remote viewers and this discovery that these remote viewers had apparently saw in Australia. So without further ado, let's check this out.
One of our remote viewers that was really good came up one day and said, "I was looking around and I think I found a UFO base on Earth." This is during the remote viewing era, and oh my God, I've got to report this to my CIA contract monitor. Do I want to tell him that? And so I did, and one of the places he came up with but one of the places he came up with was Mount Zeal in Australia. And so my CIA contract monitor says, "Well, I know the station keeper, CIA station keeper out in Australia. I think I'll call him and I won't tell him why I'm asking, but I'll ask him about Mount Seal area." So he gave him a call and he said, "I'd like to ask you about that Mount Seal area." He says, "Oh, you mean where the UFOs are always flying around?"
Whoa.
So I thought,
So what do you guys think of that? So these remote viewers, they remote viewed an alien base in Australia. And I must say, I think I could be wrong, but I think that there's a base in Australia, and I think there's a base or more. There might be more than one base in Antarctica. That place is huge. But I think there's bases in Australia because there's a lot of remote areas in Australia. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the Min lights. So there's these things called the Min lights, and people, they travel on these highways that way out, in the middle of nowhere in Australia, and they'll see these lights on the highway out in the distance where there shouldn't be any. Um, and then there was a guy I remember watching I believe it was on YouTube. It was Australian Skies. That was the name of the documentary, and it was, they were following this guy who he was being followed by UAPs everywhere he went. These UAPs would appear in the sky, and this filming crew went and followed him, excuse me, and, man, these things were in the air, and they got a lot of awesome footage, and I was watching this documentary back, like, 2020, I believe. It was during the pandemic, I remember, and, yeah, that was a crazy, crazy case. But so, yeah, I believe that there's probably is a alien base in Australia. I wouldn't I've heard Alaska. Um, being spoken about of an alien base, Catalina Island, off the coast of Catalina Island, or supposedly an alien base. And then there's another island off the west coast of Mexico where they say they believe there's an underwater base there too. So, and some people, and like, look, I'm talking about this pretty freely as if it's matter of fact. In my mind, I think it is. Maybe not all of these places, but I'm sure there's bases. I'm sure these things have been here for a very long time. And for people that's new to this subject, they're probably watching this. If they are watching this, they're gonna think I'm nuts. Just like I used to think the Stephen Greers of the world were nuts, and then I come to find out that Stephen Greer things he said appear to be true. You know, as crazy as that sounds. So but check this other. I want you to see this other this clip from uh Hal Puthoff talking about the paper he wrote on ultra dimensionals and the different possibilities of what these beings could be. It's really interesting. This whole Joe Rogan interview with Hal Puthoff was really, really interesting. And I had to check it out. So a friend of mine told me about it. We were chatting on Facebook, and you know, he was the one that kind of put me down to the episode. And yeah, just really an awesome interview. So check this clip out. I'll be right back.
As far as where they come from or what they're doing here, I myself have written a paper called Ultraterrestrials, where I try to cover the gamut. And I cover everything. Yeah, they could be spacecraft from some other galaxy whipping through here. Uh, or maybe there's some Atlanteans left over from eons ago, and they're just kind of hiding out in the seabed or on some mountain range someplace. Or maybe some ET group showed up here 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and they're hiding out with some bases locally and so on. And of course, we have a fellow by the name of a professor by the name of Masters who thinks that, well, maybe it's time travelers from the future coming back. And then there's the whole idea, since physicists like to talk about additional dimensions, I mean, maybe they come from another. So anyway, then in my ultra-terrestrials paper, I list everyone I can think of and say, we should be exploring all of these. So at this point, I would say we know it's NHI, non-human intelligence, but it's not clear what the source is. Maybe at a higher level of classification than I had access to, and maybe it's known, but right now I'd say we don't.
Do you have a suspicion?
I guess my suspicion that it's likely non-human intelligence from some other.
Dear Dr. K, I used to think I was never meant to be beautiful. You work within my budget and help me.
Galaxy or far out in our own galaxy that have come here but some time back, and that there are stations here at this point.
Well, that was that disclosure documentary that I saw you in as well that appeared at South by Southwest, which was excellent. What is it called?
It's called The Age of Disclosure.
Amazing documentary.
It's an amazing documentary.
Really hope that gets released somewhere big, like Netflix or something like that, so people can see it.
I think Dan Farah, who's the director and producer of that, by the way, a very well-known producer. He collaborated with Steven Spielberg on Ready Player One, which was the big hit, and so on. And the approach he used, which is really very clever, he contacted people like me, people like Lou Elizondo, on and on and on, and said, many of you don't want to come out really and reveal too much podcast by podcast by podcast. So tell you what, my goal, he says, I'm going to approach 38 of the maximum insiders. And by maximum insiders, I mean it includes people like, Senator Rubio, of course now Secretary of State, Clapper, who's, and I'm going to get all of you to collaborate on saying what your involvement was, to the degree you can, and, not say something and end up going to jail. And then we'll put out maximum disclosure evidence all at one time in this film. And it'll include people coming forward like Jay Stratton, who is head of the UAP task force. He's been involved in this field for 16 years. By the way, he has a book about to come out also, which will really be a disclosure. So anyways, we'll put this together. We won't talk about it along the way. And so 38 of us ended up being interviewed for the film, telling whatever role we felt we could tell. So in fact, when that film comes out, that's going to be disclosure on steroids, I think. That's going to be the maximum. And well, you saw the film, so you know it's pretty revealing.
It's very well done.
There you see it. Yeah, and he talks about Michael Masters. I guess he's a professor or some kind of university. Yeah, I think he's a professor. But he's Michael Masters thinks that these things are actually like future humans who've come back, in time from the future. Now this is getting really way out in left field. We're on the borderline of science fiction here. You know, I don't know. I can't. I don't actually. That's not one of my uh, angles. It's not one of my beliefs. But I'm not gonna knock Michael Masters. I do think these things are humanoid. I think that there's some of them are beautiful females, beautiful males. Blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, just like model type looks, and they're non-human, uh, according to some of the documentation. Um, and that brings me to this. I'm going to show you this clip with Eric Davis at the briefing, Citizens for Disclosure briefing, where he's talking about 4 different species. Just here, watch this. It's crazy. Now, the sound's not great. I'm going to turn it up a little bit, but it's horrible. That whole briefing, their sound was off. And, it makes me wonder. It really does, man. Like, I'm a conspiracy type minded guy, but the thing with Elizondo and the bogus photograph and then the sound issues just makes me think that they designed it that way to tamp down interest, my opinion. But check this out. It's really interesting what he says about these species.
Whatever species have been have been piloting these craft, how are they large? Are they multiple species? Are they like what was their size and how many are usually on a craft?
They're typically the multiple species people are familiar with, the Greys, the Nordics. People were talking about reptilians and insectoids. It's not that they're reptilian or insectoid, it's that they resemble to the recipient of reptile or an insect type humanoid, because they have a head and 4 limbs and torso.
So large, small?
Human size, human scale.
And are there how many are accrued?
Well, the Greys I'm familiar with from investigating the crash at Koala, which is misnamed the crash at Roswell. It's not the crash at Roswell, it's the crash at Rogan, Mexico. Those were Greys, those were 4 foot tall. And the Nordics are typically human size, probably, I come 5-6 feet tall. And same with the people who mislabel reptilian and insectoid, they're roughly that height too. I haven't heard anything about anything 7 or 8 feet or 9 feet tall of that nature.
Well, how about that? Insectoid, what the? He's like, man. And here's the thing, right? Like, I'm not saying that. This is the other thing. Like, newcomers to this subject, this type of talk, it like shocks them. To the point where they disbelieve. And he's saying, look, these things aren't really what they appear to be. They're humanoid. They have a head, 2 arms, 2 legs. They just resemble these things. Sorry about that if I messed my sound up. But they just resemble these things. And crazy developments. And Eric Davis, man, he's been on the forefront of these top secret classified subjects. If anybody would know, it would be him. So maybe listen, since about 2021, 2022, I've been a believer in these more fringe aspects of the UAP subject. I do. I actually, well, I'm not going to go there today, but uh, I got my shock back in 2022. And we'll just leave it at that. But and I thought a lot of this stuff was fiction, and then I came around and I realized, dude, it's fact. I mean, it's just it is what it is. Uh, Crazy whole subject is really pretty far out. Now, I don't get into the aspects of where you got these people who claim that they're mediums and they're channeling these entities, and maybe they are, but I just don't have that. I I don't know. I'm not going that far with it. You know, and then they say, they're Palladians or these different, they're from these different constellations and Orion and all that. Like, I don't know. I don't know all that. And how would anybody else know? You know what I mean? And if an entity was telling you that, how do you know that entity's who he says he is? How do you know that entity is? You know what I'm saying? It's just a lot of um, confusion on that. So I tell you what, I'm gonna hold judgment on that until a later date. You know what I mean? I don't wanna just totally poo poo it, but I'm not going there today. So yeah, I just wanted to show those clips, share all that with you guys, see what you guys thought about it. Um, and where do you think we're going? What do you think is gonna happen? Like what I don't know. I try to like see down the road, right? So in a year from now, where are we gonna be? And then I want you to like think back to last year. Like if you were following this subject like I was, last year, where were we? So last year, at this time, we had heard from David Grush, right? And Ryan Graves and the other Top Gun pilot that was involved with the Nimitz. Damn, I feel horrible forgetting his name. But anyway, they had testified before Congress. Um, there was a lot of hope for 2024, and they had that bill that was supposed to be going through the Congress, and it was supposed to clear the way and open a way for all the whistleblowers to come out, and they would have protection to come out and say what they needed to say, and then it ended up getting clipped uh, by well, I want to say Mike Rounds, maybe. Anyway, the guy that his whole district was where Wright Patterson Air Base was, and he was the one that got the bill gutted, and like it was even in the Senate. Schumer was talking about it and everything. They gutted it last fall. So this is where we were last year. And then the whole drone thing happened at the end of last. But I don't think anybody's seen the developments like what's happened since the turn, since the new year, right? You got Jake Barber, his whole crew, Baker, Skywatcher, that whole situation. Then now you got Matthew Brown, you got, the task force rep Luna and all them. So things are moving in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. We're moving. Things are happening. There's new developments seems like every day. And then there's this new NASA whistleblower. And I'll probably do an episode on him later this week. But he's talking about this aircraft carrier that supposedly we built and it's in Earth orbit or something. But here's my thing, right? There's no gravity in space, man. So like what's gonna land on the aircraft carrier? Like you see this big runway, it's an aircraft carrier. He's saying there's no gravity, dude. What's gonna land on the aircraft carrier? What's gonna land on that runway, man? Nothing, because there's no gravity. Like, duh, like things dock with the space station. They don't land on the space station. Like the whole thing, like I swear, these whistleblower and this he's like a William Tompkins type of guy. And this is where you gotta use your mind. You gotta think logically and you gotta be able to spy these bogus people out. And I'm calling them bogus. Yes, I am. Uh and there's other content creators. I think Patrick from Vetted came out and he's kind of questioning him too. I'm out and out calling him bogus. Like he's piggybacking off like William Thompson. And you always have like these. So like you'll have David Grush come out, right, or somebody like that, and then there'll be this other Jason Sands. or like Corey Good, like it seems like for every legit whistleblower that comes out, they send out this imposter that like, like like almost like you got Christ and Antichrist. It's just nuts, man. You got to be able to see through the BS. You know what I mean? Like, it's the world we live in. It's counterintelligence. Exactly what it is. And that's how they poison the well. You get this whistleblower comes out, he's really dropping bombs. Okay, we got to do some damage control. All right, let's send out they send out this, asset, to poison the well of information. Start making wild claims that are easily debunked so that they can discredit the whole subject. So be careful, because that's what's happening. And it happens routinely. It's been happening for years. And you stick with me, I'll be informing you, letting you know what I think is going on. And I'm not saying I'm right all the time. I can be fooled too. I can be fooled too. Like for a while, I thought Michael Herrera was. I thought he was both, and turns out that apparently he's not. He's very legit. I apologize, for anything that I said previously that may have cast doubt on his story, because it turns out that people in the know back up his claim. Jake Barber and a few other people. So you know, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. No big deal. You know what I mean? But the thing is, we got to just keep on working towards what the truth is, and not be afraid to call out BS when we see BS. And I think an aircraft carrier is, first of all, you know how heavy an aircraft carrier is. Even if you would, and I understand there's no gravity in space, but even if you have to shoot it up into space with a shot with some type of rocket. So weight is an issue. You know, and even if this thing's made out of some kind of light metallic, alloy or something, the fact that it's an aircraft carrier, has a runway on it, right there, it's over. Yeah, I don't believe it. You know what I mean? Because again, you know, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse, but yeah, I don't know who this character is. I don't even think I'm gonna cover him because I don't even want to give him no airplay. I don't even want nobody to go check him out because he's at, you know, I feel, he's bogus. So that's my show for today. I kind of went on a rant there. I feel like I was like in 15 different directions, but so many things have been developing. You had the Citizens for Disclosure briefing. You had the Hal Puthoff interview with Joe Rogan. All these things are developing. Not only that, but not too long ago, you had, Chris Bledsoe had 150, 200 witnesses on the beach with him at the Azalea Festival, witnessing orbs in the sky, doing all kind of acrobatic movements, and they were growing to the size of the moon, getting really bright. If you haven't researched that subject, go ahead, type that in, look that up, you'll be amazed. Chris Bledsoe, man, that dude is he's really amazing. Uh, I'd like to get Stephen Greer on here. I've been liking his posts on Facebook and stuff, and we kind of interacted briefly on there. And I tell you what, if I could get him on this show, man, that would be awesome, because he's the granddaddy of it all. I mean, he's been doing this since he's been pushing disclosure since before it was a thing. You know what I mean? When it was really, really like fringe. You know what I mean? When it was really looked at sideways, and was not accepted by scientific community or anybody. He's been doing it since before it was cool to do it. So shout out to Richard. I mean, here I go again. He wanted to call to do Richard Greer, Stephen Greer. My God, sorry about that, Steve. But yeah, if I can get him on the show, it'd be awesome. Really would. So yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry, I kind of got spun up in all these subjects, and but you guys understand. Early in the morning. I'm usually not up. Thanks for watching. John C's Truth 33. Please like and subscribe, share with a friend, and thank you. I got a $25 Cash App. So thank all of you. Thank you very much. Till tomorrow. Peace.